Um, would you repeat the question you just asked, just so that it's on the recording?
Yeah. I was wondering what your ideas are now after a number of our conversations about the original starting point of indigenous wisdom concepts in a context of an Upkido Commons, an Upkido Dojo designed from trust, the key elements that keep coming back in our weekly conversations.
Love that. I think some of it is one of the underappreciated concepts that we talked about last week is stewardship. So for me, a lot of indigenous traditions, like Kaikiakitanga from the Maori, is basically stewardship of our lands. And these concepts involve a whole series of ways and sometimes rituals. There's a book called The Perfect Order, which is about rice farmers in Bali. And it's the book is almost like a scientific study description book. It's not like a page turner, but it's really interesting because it describes how in Bali the green revolution arrives in Bali, and scientists show up and say, "Ah, we can help you really increase your rice yields. Just use this golden rice, and then you're probably going to have to apply some fertilizer and some other kinds of stuff." And these little the manual mechanical gates you have on your irrigation system, we can replace those with these electromechanical things, which would be better. And they try a lot of stuff and install a lot of stuff. And there's just one big mountain in Bali, a volcano, and all the rice paddies, the rice farms, basically the subak, come off that mountain. And they almost managed not only to kill off rice farming on Bali, but they almost managed to kill off the reefs offshore because the fertilizer creates algal blooms and all kinds of bad stuff for the reefs. And it's kind of a nightmare. And so the book Perfect Order talks about how they went in and they sent some anthropologists in to study the Hindu rituals in the temples that were on the mountain. There's sort of a main temple, and then I think there's little subsidiary temples. And they discovered, and I'm probably butchering the whole story, they discovered that these thousand-year-old rituals contained, among a bunch of other things, algorithms for the fair allocation of whose field should lie fallow now, who gets how much water off the mountain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because it turns out that if you don't have a band of fallow fields that are flooded, then pests come across from the previous fields, and all of a sudden you have a pest infestation problem. And the scientists knew none of this, had none of it in mind, and had no indigenous ways of knowing, right? But all of this was embedded in temple rituals, which I find absolutely fascinating. And so sometimes these hard-won bits of knowledge are encoded in ways that seem useless, anachronistic, quaint, I don't know, whatever else, right? And in some cases, the wisdom is encoded in ways that are supposed to survive colonialism. So, for instance, in Guatemala, Spaniards come in, take over all of Central and South America, and they basically force everybody to adopt Western dress, drop their languages as much as they can. They suppress all the native languages. So Guatemalan women take to sewing their stories into their fabrics, and they create a vocabulary, a visual vocabulary for storytelling in the fabrics. And my knowledge about that taps out there, but that was a way of preserving what they knew in whatever way was left to them, right? There's a really nice book about Guatemala and indigenous wisdom called Secrets of the Talking Jaguar by Martine
Mm,
Prechtel. Have you heard of it?
I have not. No.
It's actually really worth a read. I really like it. Secrets of the Talking Jaguar, published in 1999. And it's about a guy who shows up in the town of Atitlan, right on a lake in Guatemala, which turns out to be one of the most biologically diverse countries on the planet. It sounds Guatemala sounds way more interesting than I had ever thought it would be.
Mm.
And he shows up and he's just drawn to a meeting or a group that he goes to where a shaman basically says, "Oh, you've arrived. I've been waiting for you. Follow me." And
Wow.
he gets immersed in the local traditions, learns about the local shamanic practices, and gets involved in local governance. And the whole, the whole book is about how that evolves and what it turns into. And it's like really, really interesting. Super cool.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
so, so sorry, too many stories, but I think that stewardship is one of the things that an Aikido dojo could um, take as one of its core principles, which I think is sort of where we're heading.
Yeah,
But then, what do you create as ways of making it memorable and practical? What does stewardship mean in a modern society, right?
yeah.
And I think those are great questions, and they're questions that a group of people who are trying to figure this out might sit down and borrow and invent and other sorts of things. There are a couple of very nice books about making up your own rituals,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
which could be very useful there. And rituals can be really simple. I mean, we shake hands when we greet people. That's a ritual. It's a social ritual,
Mm.
or give them a hug if we know them, modestly well. Um, so some rituals are very lightweight, very tiny.
Taking a few notes myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of taking a an underused good idea or an underappreciated idea or even reclaiming a spoiled idea and coupling them with lots of stories and indigenous concepts which are still in practice and sort of
Hmm.
creating a web of examples, resources, questions around the concepts which are being explored in the Aikido dojo.
Yes. And I'm having a kind of a silly idea, but I was at an airport looking for a plug, and somebody had a really smart idea. They traveled with a plug converter, which took one plug and had like six plugs coming out of it. And
Yeah,
they offered this to their neighbors. They were like, "Hey, let me plug this in first, and then each of us can sort of plug in and get power from the same outlet." That was somebody who was sharing this set of pseudo commons of electricity for travelers desperate to recharge their modern devices,
mhm,
right? But that's being mindful of others as you provide for yourself.
yeah, yeah,
And I think some of the interesting questions here are, how does all this translate to modern life?
yeah, yeah,
And I was also just thinking that all of us have a ritual, for example, when we travel, how we set up and remember to plug in and unplug all of our things and
yeah,
recharge. Like we have a
yeah,
ritual for that. And I have a ritual that I call the sweep, which is in what order do I check what media for messages and posts every day, and how often, right? There's some things that I keep an eye on at least hourly, sort of. You know, I'll probably flip over to my email inbox every hour unless I'm booked for several hours solid, but I'll be looking. Um, but then Substack is like the last thing I check. And my rank ordering of my sweep might be very different from yours.
yeah,
And you might be much smarter and postpone checking anything in your sweep until after lunch. Because I know that my mornings are shot because I do some of the sweep.
yeah, yeah. I like the way that this has been developing now. I think it's getting a step or two closer to something we could present to a few other people and invite them in.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I liked your stewardship example. It's a word that's in use among amongst people like us, but less commonly used or underappreciated or considered spoiled by far more people. And it
Yeah.
could be reclaimed, I don't want to say reinvented, but reframed in
Hmm.
terms of a set of questions like how could this be done in a local way? How could this be done in a major way if you had a magic wand? And what's in between, uh,
Hmm.
which is the normal thing of scenarios anyway. And then trying to work that out with people in a dojo. For me, the dojo is absolutely coached practice,
Hmm.
and all of the resources belong in the Apkido Commons.
Yes, exactly. Love that. I mean,
Yeah,
that all makes sense to me. What other things are inspired for you to bring into the mix?
well, the way I conceptualize things is sort of the way I'm doing now, just trying to say out loud what's at the tip of my tongue, imagining that the tip of my tongue is it's the stylus reading the unseen messages in my brain,
Hmm.
and it gets clearer every time, and it still leaves it open for you or whoever else might be listening to this conversation if it's posted, to say yes and or yes but or what about.
Hmm. Hmm.
It,
Exactly.
it would seem to me, but then I'm always I like creativity and I like free thinking, but whenever I used to run workshops or more multi-day sessions, I like to build a kind of practical thing in it because I was working for a great deal of time with engineers and accountants,
Hmm.
and that gives them something to think, well, it's not all flying a few feet above the ground. So, what I was going to say with that as a preface is you provided stewardship as an example now. Maybe we should look at one or two others, maybe not all too many.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then while we're talking and or between now and the next couple of days, uh, try to see how they relate to a set of the indigenous wisdom concepts, the underappreciated ideas, the underused ideas, the spoiled ideas, where I might say stewardship has been too long a hype, so it's a bit spoiled. Someone else might say, no, it's actually the cutting edge of what these 10 organizations I know about are doing. So
Right. Right.
there's lots of room for people to discuss. How does that seem?
And I was just in conversation this morning talking about Beelzorg, which I think is a Dutch organization for elder care and like neighborhood
Yeah,
connected elder care, which I think became so popular, is a very low cost, highly effective organization of self-management. It's a really nice example of distributed self-management. And the Dutch government took notice and started to try to make it, part of the national healthcare system in different ways. But few people are aware of it in other places. And part of what it does is it trusts practitioners who are doing mostly elder care need to live in the neighborhoods that they serve. I think that's
yeah,
one of the keys is that nobody's commuting to work, that the people are local and available, and they have a tremendous amount of autonomy,
yeah,
meaning they can order supplies or tests or whatever. I'm making some of this up, um, but what winds up happening is people get a much, much higher level of observation and care. And I remember long ago, my friend Tom Munneke, who helped create the Global Vista software, back then it was just Vista, which is open source, Prolog based software, I think, that runs the US Veterans Administration medical system, which is open source. And he was saying one of the subtleties that he cared about a lot was what databases let you capture. And one of the things he said was that when the nurse comes in and sees you multiple times a day, they're the one who can tell that you are now much more ashen, that your skin, your complexion has suddenly turned kind of white and your lips are a little bluer. And that is probably a sign of trouble. And that's not easy to put in a database, and you don't really want to overmeasure it and cause data entry to happen. But the human contact lets you see the through line of a condition and its improvement or deterioration. And I think the whole idea of Buurtzorg, I really like for that. And I'll tie it together to one other story, which is
Yeah.
in Cuba, health outcomes are awesome, even though they've been on embargo for decades and they have no modern equipment and they're under tremendous economic pressure. But their health outcomes are good. One reason is pretty much every apartment block, one of the apartments is a clinic. And I'm just going to tell you, how brilliant is that? They
Yeah.
also have more trained doctors per capita than almost any country because they made training doctors a priority. And they volunteer doctors all around the world. Cuban doctors are famous for going around the world and solving problems and being helpful. They don't make a lot of money because nobody makes a lot of money in Cuba, but they're very capable and they know what to do without a lot of resources. So you have a clinic pretty much everywhere, a bunch of training and high literacy rates. The whole thing turns into a healthy population, right?
Yeah.
So I love things like that. And I don't mean we need to turn the US into Cuba, although we seem to be doing that on our own. um, but rather that there's some really nice examples around the world that we should be borrowing from.
Yeah.
Now, the medical establishment, because we've privatized so much of healthcare in the US, the medical establishment needs some reason to be renting a flat in every building, which they'll never, ever, ever, ever do. But then that raises a whole bunch of interesting questions about, well, exactly how much of our health and well-being should be in private hands and how much of it should be a public good or a public institution, which raises the neighboring questions of, oh my God, we've been so bad at designing all these public institutions, which is in fact a problem. I think that part of the reason we have uprisings like the Trumpocalypse is that people are extremely unhappy with the current state of institutions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then sometimes when they go into the institutions, it's like, this one's working really well. It's actually really effective and highly efficient, but nobody knows.
Yeah.
Um, but then also sometimes we've outsourced like elder care, like, oh, you're on Medicare or Medicaid now,
Yeah.
so it's somebody else's problem, as opposed to my neighbor's elder. I should pay attention and be helpful and drive her to the doctor when she needs it now and then, or help her up the stairs with groceries or whatever.
Yeah.
We've cut that out a lot. We've gutted a lot of the social ties that made society a thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And more are being eliminated every day,
right?
if you can believe the news in my filter bubble.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's easier every day to live your own life by yourself, closeted or sequestered in your little living capsule,
Yeah.
ordering in food or groceries. All services can be, dialed in on your smartphone, and it's like, what do we do?
Well, it's getting to be a dangerous world. So why would you risk being contaminated by a pathogen, or being attacked in the street, or being accused of being anti-American because your skin's a little darker than the policeman's? Yeah,
Yeah,
better to
yeah,
stay indoors. Yeah,
I know it's dangerous out there.
yeah, absolutely. Why I liked your example, the Dutch example, the buurtzorg,
Hmm.
uh, is that it was wonderful when it was first introduced, and it is still operating very nicely in some communities, but it was very open to being misused. So, without going into how it's been misused, it it could make people curious enough to go investigate it online with ChatGTP or whatever, and see that there's two, three, or 10 sides of everything, and that
Hmm.
it's up to people like themselves to implement it in the way that it was meant to be.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's a key architectural issue, topic, theme. which is to decentralize things enough that people can adopt a model and then customize it and be responsible for it locally.
Yeah,
Because you don't get rid of corruption that way, but at least you know who's in charge, you know who's doing stuff, and the outcomes that happen are directly affecting your life. And so who's gonna, you know, corruption doesn't go away, bad actors don't go away. But if you can sort of maintain a way of working that lets you know who's doing the work and what the outcomes are, I think it's good.
yeah, exactly. So these all sound like interesting things for a dojo. Uh, I think we talked about some of the basic principles of having an Opkido dojo in an earlier call, uh,
Hmm.
and I might call them protocols of what an Opkido dojo might be. No one is better than anyone else. No one shows off. You listen respectfully. All those type of things. So is it interesting to sort of put some of that on the Opkido website?
Yeah, and I think you're talking about Janteloven.
About, sorry?
Janteloven. In Scandinavia, there's, oh wow, I forgot about Lagom. There's I'm going to put the Wikipedia entry for it in the chat. The law of Jante or
Oh,
Janteloven, the 10 rules of Janteloven are you're not to think you're anything special. You're not to think you're as good as we are. You're not to think that you are smarter than we are. You're not to imagine yourself better than we are. You're not to think that you know more than we do. You're not to think that we're more important than we are. You're not to think that you're good at anything. You're not to laugh at us. You're not to think anyone cares about you. And you're not to think you can teach us anything. That is Scandinavian wisdom,
that's terrific.
which
Ha!
is harsh. I think it's pretty
Oh,
harsh.
oh,
Um,
that's really great.
yeah,
No, I wasn't familiar with that at all, but that's sort of the type of thing I was thinking of. Yeah,
yeah. And Swedish also has a term lagom, just enough, just the right amount,
yeah, 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 exactly.
which I'd forgotten about entirely. So I'll put that in the chat. Hmm.
I've still got 2 weeks before I disappear to South Korea. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I'm reading a very interesting history of the two careers now, and fitting that the way they took the absolute poverty that they were in at the end of the Second World War and took two very similar intellectual paths, but in totally different geopolitical directions. And the authors are alternating. How did North Korea do it? How did South Korea do it?
Wow.
And I keep thinking about what's going on in America, and seems like is the right word a roadmap, or is the right word a blueprint, or is the right word
Right.
the thing that stamps out copies? At any rate, what I was going to say is, if you're feeling all right with that, in one of the next two sessions, be nice if I could also take part in a session where there was at least one other or maybe two other people.
Yes, that sounds great. We were also going to use some of this time today to co-author a post about keto, and it feels like we've got enough kind of critical mass of ideas and things to do so. And then you just asked, should we be putting things like this on the website? Which I think yes. But I shared with you the Claude dialogue where Claude designed a whole bunch of things into a possible website. I have not
Yeah,
sat down. I basically opened that document in Obsidian because it's a Markdown document, but
yeah,
I haven't gone to the website and played with it. I also don't think I've added you yet with edit privileges to the website, which is a Google site, which means it should be pretty easy to figure out. I'm
yeah,
happy to
yeah,
talk you through how it works. But
yeah,
I'm thinking I should, if it's okay with you, I should take a swing at taking the Claude generated materials, which are voluminous. It's quite a bit of stuff,
Yeah.
and updating the website with that.
Yeah.
And then we can sort of stop and look at it and say, all right, let's change this, let's swap this out, let's upgrade this, let's do whatever over here. But I'd be happy to do that, to start that process.
Yeah. That sounds like a really good idea because that takes it one step closer to being public.
Exactly. And
Because yeah,
would you like to start a Google Doc to do a joint post about Upketo, or shall I start one? Either way.
I think you're much faster and more
Eh,
literate using these things than I am. But
well,
once
good.
once it's
While we're talking, I'll just start one up.
oh, yeah, that's it would have taken me 10 minutes probably to figure out how to do it. I'm 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 very good at figuring things out, but not fast. You know what I mean?
Hmm, that's good. Patience is good.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm just going to give it a name
yeah,
and copy you in.
yeah. Excellent.
With your EduCore or your Gmail email
Uh,
for a Google Doc.
oh, I think Gmail is probably better.
Okay. You should now have an invite to the document.
In the mail.
It should be in your email. Yeah.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, got it.
Cool.
Yeah, I just opened it. Yeah,
Cool. So we can figure out what to call this. I don't like the name I just put in, so let's retitle it. Um, but maybe we just brainstorm a bit for what we think wants to be in an intro article about Aikido.
yeah. Well, we could do a sort of structured thing with what is Aikido, why Aikido, where Aikido, how that's an old-fashioned structure.
Yeah, I think a part of it is probably something that's like what's going to go on the homepage of the website. But I think we want to motivate people first with the outcome of like
Yeah,
improving everything you touch, kind of just going there, and then the backstory, what is Aikido and what is uplift or
yeah,
upward spiral, can come in after. But if we start explaining Aikido, people are going to be like, yeah, I
yeah,
don't know why you're telling me about Aikido.
yeah,
So first would be like, okay, let's um, something about that.
yeah,
Um, yeah. I will just do a screen share of screens so that it goes on the recording. First one I'm doing. And it's funny because the website is going to say a bunch of this stuff. And I'm wondering what is the least we could write in a post that points to a nice website. So we wouldn't post the post until we're happy with what the website looks like. So
Yeah.
so this presupposes me going and doing the transplant from the Obsidian doc into the website, blah blah blah, and then us looking at all that and liking it, which might take a week or so. But what is the least we could then say in an intriguing LinkedIn post so that people just go directly to the website and start, so the explanation of Aikido, the explanation of uplift, we might not even need that in the LinkedIn post.
Yeah. 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 I agree.
Um, which for me means getting rid of the backstory. Um,
Yeah.
and what I'm thinking is that I start with Hank and I've been working on this practice, and then you start with Jerry and I've been working on this practice, and we do the same post in parallel, post it at the same time, uh,
Yeah.
and people will figure it out that way.
Yeah.
And yep.
Yeah. That would work.
Mhm. And I forget how long are you going to be in Korea?
Uh, just short of 5 weeks.
Oh wow. Wow. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
tremendous. And are you going to travel around in the country?
Yeah. I've just been working out type of logistic overview of it this afternoon.
Mm,
Uh, we're going to be in, I think, at the moment, looks like 7 or 8 different locations for at least 3, 4, or 5 nights in each. Travel by public transportation in each of the places, explore the feeling of what it's like to be there, and take day trips to interesting places nearby,
right.
whether they're temples in the countryside or walking paths in national parks. So this is yeah, yeah,
That sounds wonderful. Sounds really wonderful. I put the link to my brain on South Korea in the chat earlier.
yeah. I saw that. Yeah,
So there's lots of, I've got lots of stuff on South Korean culture, articles about, all kinds of different concepts out of Korean, etc. So
yeah. It looked quite extensive. Excellent. That'll be really helpful.
just places to play if you're looking for what other perspectives to take on your travels. But that just sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I'm interested in filling a gap of trying to understand a little understood country.
Hmm.
And I'm open to everything from K-pop to philosophy, living philosophy.
Have you heard of K-dramas?
I have not. No.
So there's K-pop, which is Korean pop music, but there's a whole genre of kind of soap operas, except they're extremely popular around the world, I think. Here, I'll put a Wikipedia page for it in the chat. But there's a bunch of people whose guilty pleasure is watching K-dramas. So here, Crash Landing on You, The Jewel in the Palace is one of the earliest Korean dramas.
Yeah.
Uh, it's
Yeah.
all part of the Korean wave.
Yeah. 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 Really very interesting. Yeah.
All right, so what else can we see in our post? Um,
Yeah.
That's funny. Upkeep. So actually, yeah, key is chi.
Yeah,
And we'll say this on the website, but the
yeah,
key in Aikido is chi, which is universal life energy. I
yeah,
is harmony,
yeah,
and do is the way.
yeah. Are we going to attract practical people, people who feel that something spiritual is very important in their lives, so practical people who never think in terms of spirituality, but uh, nevertheless, with everything they do, they are trying to improve the things they touch. Is it a mix?
I think it's a mix because I was just thinking as you started saying that we kind of want this to be like aesthetic and artful as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
but not as the British say, airy fairy.
mhm.
Because I'm thinking of some people who are regulars on the OGM calls, where they are more interested in hearing about what you can do with it as opposed to the aesthetics of it.
Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. We're coming up on the top of our hour.
Yeah,
Um, so you have how many more weeks before you leave?
2 weeks.
Okay, so the next two Tuesdays we can still have this call.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
while you're on the road, are you going to be fully locally focused, or are you going to be able to do asynchronous stuff or
At the moment, we are considering this as a real vacation.
yeah,
Vacate the mind and the heart
nice.
of what you've been doing. Although after 3 weeks of doing that, anything's possible.
Yeah, good. Okay.
I'm not exactly
So,
sure of the time zone effects of West Coast, North America, and Korea. It might just be possible to have relevant times together.
yep, yep. It's possible that the very tail end of my day dovetails with the beginning of your days or vice
Yeah,
versa.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. So we'll figure that out as it goes. But let's see what we can do in the next 2 weeks with this and the site. Um,
So you suggested once the site is been reconfigured, sending out this link to people in our networks.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think well, the current plan sort of has us um, be mutually happy with what's on the website first.
Yeah.
Uh, then we finish this post according to, you know, making it so that people will go look at the website to read up on Apkido and maybe join.
Yeah.
And then we just put out a blanket and ping our followers basically.
Yeah. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is the first time or couple of times by invitation only.
Yes, we could in fact specifically poke certain people and say, "Hey, would you like to join us?"
Yeah. People
That's
that
probably a very good first pass.
yeah, people we think would be interested enough in this and who are with enough diversity,
Yeah, yeah,
women, younger, non Western Europe or North America, at
yep.
least to get people who we think would like to practice something like this, but have enough diversity to say yes and yes, however, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that plan. Yeah, very good.
Cool, cool, like that. Well, I'm gonna sit and keep writing on this thing for a bit. Let me
Yeah.
stop the screen share. Um, yeah, I don't know. Then like then I'll shift my attention to the website for a bit and see if I can make some progress there. I will add you to the website so that you can edit
Yeah.
and see what's up.
Yeah. And as a parting shot, I know we both agree on stuff like this. Lots of images as well as words.
Yes,
So, I
agreed
mean,
entirely.
I bought a lot of photos from, I can't remember the name of it, one of the uh,
Shutterstock or Getty or
Shutterstock. Yeah, thank you. I bought a lot of images from Shutterstock so I could use them in things like this. And there are a few I still have rights to, and
cool.
probably have something similar to that.
And I've been generating a ton of images in Midjourney, which
Oh,
means we would
yeah.
have rights to them right away.
Oh,
And
perfect.
you can sometimes they're hard to control. It also knows how to do short animations, which are pretty sometimes quite cool, and sometimes they're very funny. So for one of April's talks, I created an animation of a father helping a girl learn how to ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
And so, he's kind of jogging next to her and gives her a little push off. And I couldn't get it to do exactly that. And on a couple of them, he pushes her and she flips around and suddenly she's riding right toward us. And I'm like, how did that happen? So Midjourney gets a whole bunch of things just really, really wrong, but every now and then hits it
Yeah.
like just right. And you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. Sounds good. Is it difficult to learn or is it
No,
relatively?
it's not bad. And also, if you just go to Midjourney and hit explore,
Yeah.
you can just see what everybody else has done, and then you can borrow their prompts,
Yeah, exactly.
which is kind of key.
Yeah.
Learning by seeing what everybody else has done is really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Terrific.
yeah,
Again, a nice, inspired few steps towards the locks we want to match with our keys.
love that. Exactly, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I will see you next week here.
Yeah. See you next week and online. I think I'll be able to join OGM call this coming Thursday. At least there's nothing else conflicting with that. And we have internet and various other ways of getting in touch.
Super. And I'm gonna have to hand off Thursday's call because I'm a half hour into it, I have to join the thing I'm here for. The event starts.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So I will just whoever wants to sort of lead the rest of the call. If you wanted to hijack the call, I would be happy to pass the helm to you. So consider that as a possibility.
Okay, will do. Okay,
Cool.
Jerry. Have a great week. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Hank. You too.